Hey guys, welcome back to our Wednesday night Bible study, and we're going to continue looking at this idea of owning our faith. And we've been looking at 1 Timothy 4:12, and it says, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." And we're going to look at this idea of purity today. And before we dive into that, one of the things we're doing in this video is you will see some words that will have a phrase. The first person who texts me this phrase after this video has launched will get half of their camp payment paid for. So that's just kind of a little promotion we're doing with this video. So back to this idea of owning it. I do love the way that Paul is talking to Timothy, because I think that your purity drives your faith, and your faith drives your love, and your love drives your conduct, and your conduct drives your speech. I think that it's this domino effect. But I want to talk about purity for a little bit, because I think a lot of times we confuse the idea of purity simply with virginity, this idea of sexuality. When the truth is this, purity is so much more. Even in a sexual standpoint, you can be impure after you've been married, and you can be impure and be faithful to one partner all at the same time. But purity also has a larger scale, I believe, when it comes to this definition. And we're going to look at one verse, and it's just simply 1 Peter 1:16. And Peter is quoting the Old Testament. He says, "Since it is written, 'You shall be holy, for I am holy.'" And I think that that is the best definition of purity, is the idea of holiness. I think we miss the idea of holiness because so many times we don't understand the holiness of God. Going back to one of my favorite passages, Isaiah chapter 6, when Isaiah has his encounter with God, God's holiness shook Isaiah. It shook him. It pointed out the sin in his life. It pointed out the sin in the lives of the people that were around him. Just the presence of his holiness. Let's go back and let's look at Moses and the idea being when he was hid in the cleft of the rock, and it said that God would move past him and he would be able to see. Basically, what I determine is this idea of a wake. When you're on a boat, you make a wake. The bigger the boat, the bigger the wake. Sometimes you can be somewhere and a big wake comes in and you're like, ooh, that boat must have been big and it must have been going fast. When I was on a cruise ship a few years ago, I sat at the back and I just took a picture of the wake that the boat was making. That's what Moses saw. Moses saw the wake. Moses saw what happened when God moves from one point to another point, and you see God's disturbance, I guess, of what's going on. Moses saw the wake of God, and his face was so bright that he had to put a veil over it because it was like a nightlight. God's holiness is incredible. God's holiness is amazing. And God's holiness is the standard that we're supposed to reach for. We're supposed to be holy as God is holy. Not just okay, not just a little bit here, not just right, but every aspect of our life. We're supposed to strive for holiness. We're supposed to strive to look like our Father. And Paul tells Timothy to set an example in his purity, set an example in his holiness. In everything that you do, in every aspect of your life, whether it be your speech, whether it be your conduct, whether it be your love, or whether it be your faith, your purity, your holiness, your integrity needs to shine through in those. And not just yours, but your integrity, your pure holiness, your purity needs to come from God. Be holy, for I am holy. That should be the first and last aspect when it comes to what does holiness look like in our lives. Well, what does holiness look like to God? And so I want to challenge you guys to be holy this week, to set an example in holiness, not to look at the world the way that the world looks at it, not to answer the world the way that the world answers, but to be set apart. And that's almost another definition of holiness, is to be set apart, to be pure, to be different. Let your light shine before men, and let them glorify God because of it. I I love you guys, and I hope you all have a good week.